On June 6, 1944, the largest seaborne invasion in history began D-Day. Allied troops took to the beaches of Normandy, France, in an attempt to end Nazi Germany's 3-year reign over Western Europe. But the operation to liberate France from Nazi control was one of the most dangerous military operations ever undertaken. And for the Allied forces, the road ahead would be long and fraught with peril. Operation Overlord, as it was called, was the brainchild of British planner and World War II expert General John Montgomery. Montgomery had learned from the British Expeditionary Force's miraculous escape from Dunkirk in 1940, where 500,000 British troops were rescued from the beaches of northern France by a flotilla of civilian boats. 3 years later, Montgomery was determined that the beaches of Normandy would be used for a very different purpose. With the help of American and Canadian forces, he planned to finally take the war to the Germans and liberate Western Europe from Hitler's iron grip. In May 1943, Montgomery met with American General George Patton and Canadian General Harry Crerar to discuss a joint invasion of Western Europe. But there were many obstacles to overcome before the Allied leaders could sign the invasion plan. The first was the Germans themselves, who patrolled the coast in armored vehicles and fortified the beaches with mines, barbed wire, and artillery emplacements. Even worse, German leader Adolf Hitler was expecting an invasion in Western Europe and had ordered his generals to defend the coastline with their lives. For the Allied forces to stand even the slimmest chance of success, they would have to take the Germans completely by surprise. The second obstacle was the elements. Storms in the English Channel often made the crossing impossible, and if the Allied troops were caught in a storm while crossing the channel, they would surely be obliterated by the strong currents and high waves. Finally, there was the question of which beach to use for the invasion. Montgomery ultimately decided on 5, Utah. The beach's code-named Sword, Juno, Mike, and Gold. Each was patrolled by the enemy, defended by concrete bunkers and laced with deadly obstacles. But on June 6, 1944, against all odds, the Allied invasion force, comprising of more than 150 men, set sail across the channel in a massive fleet of landing craft, tanks, and other vessels. As the Allied troops approached the coast of Normandy, thousands of paratroopers took to the beaches under cover of darkness. They quickly realized that they were not alone. German soldiers opened fire on the Allied landing parties, forcing them to take cover in the shallows. Many of the Allied soldiers waded ashore with rifles raised, firing at the enemy as they went. Once ashore, they quickly linked up with Canadian, British, and American troops who had landed on the other beaches. Together, they charged inland, fighting off the Germans who tried to stop them. Meanwhile, Allied warships bombarded the beaches, destroying many of the obstacles that the Germans had erected. By 10 a.m., the Allied troops had advanced inland to 3 miles, but now they were met with a new obstacle, a thick wood line that stretched as far as the eye could see. And as the hours passed, it became clear that capturing the villages beyond the trees would be a long and bloody affair. As the fighting intensified, reinforcements arrived. By the end of the day, some 75,000 Allied soldiers had taken to the beaches, advancing inland about 8 kilometers in some areas. But the real victory was that they had managed to establish a beachhead from which they could launch further attacks. In the weeks that followed, the Allies pushed inland, eventually liberating all of France and driving the Nazis back into Germany. It was a triumph that marked the beginning of the end for Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. Of the 150 Allied soldiers who had launched the invasion, nearly 10,000 were dead or wounded. Among them were men like John Steele, a young American soldier who wrote home to his mother just days before the invasion. "I am going to do my best to get across the ocean so I can help liberate those poor people, and also so I can see what I am fighting for. I want to see Paris again." Steele and many others did make it to Paris, but not without great sacrifice. The battle for France was far from over, and the coming months would be filled with more hardships, more sacrifices, and more victories as the Allies pushed deeper and deeper into enemy territory. But on this day, June 6, 1944, they had achieved something truly remarkable. They had taken the first step towards ending the war and securing a lasting peace for the world. We will never forget the courage and sacrifice of those who fought on that day.